talks in Islamabad were doomed from the very beginning. You have two players in the game who just don't want to listen to the other side. So the key point was nuclear. And on that, Iran will not yield. The idea is to blockade all Iranian ships or Iranian allied ships which are coming in, while allowing the non-Iranian ships to go out of the Strait of Hormuz. This blockade is going to cause a lot of economic hardships. It's going to hit at the global economy. Yesterday, the Americans said that they had pushed in 2 Arleigh-Burke destroyers inside the Strait of Hormuz towards Persian Gulf. There is no transparency even on that. Iran, they can target these ships using mines, using kamikaze gunboats. India is actually currently engaged in post-ceasefire diplomacy. And that is why External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar was in Abu Dhabi. The weapons the air defense systems that the Iranians are using are the Chinese system. But have they really helped?
Hello and a very warm welcome to all. You're watching Hindustan Times and my name is Aisha Varma. On this segment of Point Blank, we discuss the latest attempt to halt the Middle East war, among other developments. Joining us is HT's executive editor, Mr. Shishir Gupta. Sir, namaskar. So the United States is now announcing that they will be implementing a blockade at the Strait of Hormuz. What are the details and who does this impact?
US President Donald Trump has announced that he will be blockading the Strait of Hormuz in retaliation to the failed talks in Islamabad, as well as Iranians allowing certain ships and certain tankers to pass through the Strait of Hormuz and give oil supplies to China. So right now, the way it stands is that the blockade is going to be implemented, and the idea is to blockade all Iranian ships or Iranian allied ships which are coming in, while allowing the non-Iranian ships to go out of the Strait of Hormuz. Now, this is easier said than done because this can invite retaliation from Iran. This can lead to a whole lot of complications because, we still are not very clear as to where the blockade will come in. Will it come in the Gulf of Oman? Will it come on the mouth of the Strait of Hormuz? Will it come in Persian Gulf? We do not know. Now, the other part is that yesterday the Americans said that they had pushed in 2 Arleigh-Burke destroyers inside the Strait of Hormuz towards Persian Gulf. There is no transparency even on that because, normally what these warships do is that they switch off their automated identification systems, AIS. So it's very difficult to know whether the ships have gone in or what is the status of the ship. Fact of the matter is that the Armada is all over the place in Gulf of Oman. The Armada is there south of, in the south of Oman. And there's a whole lot of ships over there. Now, what happens is that the US has said that they will blockade all Iranian ports. That includes those on the North Arabian Sea part, then possibly the Caspian Sea part. So it's going to be a huge operation. And it can invite escalation from Iran. They can target these ships using mines, using kamikaze gunboats, which have a lot of explosive in that, or using missiles. Now, they have still a lot of missiles with them, so they can do that. They can use drones in that, right? If that happens, then there's going to be retaliation from the American side because all these destroyers, aircraft carriers are equipped with the latest and the best of equipment. So there is a possible chance of an escalation in this. And it's still not very clear as to how the blockade will take place and what are the modalities or how it's going to be implemented on sea. But one thing is for certain, This blockade is going to cause a lot of economic hardships. It's going to hit at the global economy because the simple fact is that Iran has nothing to lose in this game. Now, what is going to happen is that if the ships are not allowed to go, and I believe some 900 odd ships are stuck in the Persian Gulf. So if the ships are not allowed to go, then there's going to be energy crisis, which will escalate into global economy crisis, which can escalate into possible central banks, increasing the interest rate. So it's one serious mess that you're operating over there. Now, the reason why he's talked about a blockade is because apparently some 9 Iranian flag tankers actually were seen to be moving towards picking up oil, picking up crude, and seen to be moving towards China. Now, the US President Donald Trump has talked about, this blockade putting pressure on India and China. Now, I'm not too sure whether India has got some Iranian oil. I mean, it could have been some private company or something, but not India definitely. Because the Indian government is very clear that they did not get any Iranian oil. Now, there is talk about some shadow fleet, some 4 odd tankers, possibly flying Russian flags. They were seen out. So, the whole idea is that if I don't get oil, that is US and its allies don't get oil, then why should US allow Iran to send to export oil and earn revenue? So this is the whole idea, So this is tit for tat. But what will happen is that in this entire thing, all this is, if some trigger happy person decides to launch a missile towards this, then everything goes, awry. So it's a very precarious situation in the Gulf, in the Strait of Hormuz, in the Gulf of Oman, because anything can happen. And if that happens, there will be a domino effect, and then you will see possibly the war reigniting. But again, not too sure because there is hardly any transparency over there, and there is a lot of misinformation on both sides. This is where it stands.
Now, sir, speaking about the war reigniting, the talks in Islamabad seem to have collapsed. What exactly happened, and where does the ceasefire go from here?
See, the talks in Islamabad were doomed from the very beginning. You have 2 players in the game who just don't want to listen to the other side. You have President Donald Trump, who had a maximalist position. You have the Iranians who have a maximalist position. And the talks couldn't have yielded anything till such time there was a breakthrough on the nuclear side. Now, what happens is like this. Why did the war take place? The war took place because the Iranians were enriching uranium and trying to enrich it to the weapons grade. That was the fundamental reason why the war took place. The real military objective was to emasculate nuclear Iran. Right? Now, what is happening is that normally for civilian nuclear use, you need to enrich uranium from somewhere between 3.75% to 5%. Iran had already enriched uranium to 60%. Now, for a nuclear weapon to be made, you need enrichment up to 80% plus. Now, this could have been achieved. So, the military objective was clearly to degrade nuclear Iran. Now, for a peace to take place, what was needed was that Iran either caps its nuclear program, hands over the already enriched material, that is 60%, to a third power or IAEA, which Iran will not do. Because if Iran does that, then already a regime change has taken place. Because the previous regime or the hardline regime will not allow that. It was not about ballistic missiles, because ballistic missiles, Iran would definitely need a deterrent for. So the key point was nuclear. And on that, Iran will not yield. Similarly, US and Israel will not yield if Iran does not do that. Because the moment you allow Iran, it will enrich uranium to weapons grade. And then a new cycle of violence will start. So it's a very complicated one, and these talks were really doomed from the very start because Iran would not yield. US cannot afford to allow Iran to enrich uranium. It's got about some 400 odd kgs for enriched uranium. Just merely saying that I will not make a nuclear weapon does not hold ground, because the Iranian regime, talks elliptically, and it's prone to telling people that actually it is not for a nuclear bomb. That is not the case. If that was not there, why is it enriching uranium? So it's a complicated situation, and that's why the talks couldn't have yielded any result. But what has happened is that post talks, the focus now is shifted to Strait of Hormuz, because if the global commerce is not allowed, unimpeded global commerce is not allowed, then it will become a very serious issue, because if you block the Straits of Hormuz, tomorrow somebody can block the Strait of Malacca. Tomorrow somebody can block the 10-degree channel between Andaman and Nicobar Islands. Tomorrow somebody can block the Bosphorus Straits. Tomorrow somebody can block, the Gibraltar Straits. It's going to be a domino effect in the entire thing. So this thing has to sort out. And right now what has happened is, what you see is that this blockade is to tell Iran to back off on the Strait of Hormuz and let the global commerce take place. And in the meanwhile, the talks can continue, again maybe in Pakistan or whichever place they want, to try and see if they can come somewhere closer to the positions that they have already taken. But this is going to be a very difficult thing, because two sides are adamant, two sides are prone to giving inflated statements, sometimes lying through the teeth. So one is not very clear. But what you are definitely sure is that the global economy is going to go for a toss. Again, because the crude oil again has jumped up.
So now beyond this, the US Vice President J.D. Vance has publicly appreciated Pakistan's efforts as far as mediation is concerned. Some are now asking this question about whether or not Pakistan's mediation efforts mean that it signals a failure of India's diplomacy. What is the truth here?
See, I just can't understand how is Indian diplomacy got to do with what is happening in Pakistan. I mean, why are we trying to hyphenate with Pakistan again? India has nothing to do with this. Pakistan is a convenient lackey of US. It is being used for a long time. Pakistan also has had some very close ties with Iran. Let me take you back. When the Americans launched Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan, all the Al-Qaeda senior leadership escaped to Iraq and to Middle East via Iran. And in this, Pakistan was complicit. So Pakistan is one player which is convenient to both sides. And India has nothing to do with it. I mean, Indian diplomacy has not failed, because just look at what has happened in the neighborhood of India. I mean, India has come to aid of, it's supplied fuel to Sri Lanka. It's talking already to Bangladesh. The entire ties have been repaired after the American plant, Mohammed Yunus, went back. It has got some excellent relationship with the new regime of Balendra Shah in Nepal. It has got very good ties with Taliban in Afghanistan, in Maldives. So I just can't understand how Indian diplomacy is. I mean, opposition has to criticize the government. That is the role of the opposition. But the fact remains is India is actually currently engaged in post-ceasefire diplomacy. And that is why External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar was in Abu Dhabi, and to basically thank the UAE government for standing up with the Indian diaspora. He returned last night and basically helping out the Indian diaspora at the time of crisis when the Iranians were launching missiles over there. Similarly, there is going to be a reach out to Saudi Arabia also, basically to thank them also. And India is doing what it wants to do. I mean, here it's not a competition with Pakistan. And Pakistan can do what Pakistan wants to do. I mean, Pakistan, they are close to the Americans. They've been playing the American game for a long, long time. Well, possibly since 1979. So that's where it is. So I don't think so. India has lost anything in this. Fact of the matter is the global economy, the global energy has been hit. Everybody has been hit. It's not that India has been only singled out. And let's not hyphenate India with Pakistan because India is on a different level altogether.
So there are reports about China also supplying air defense systems to Iran during the ceasefire, apart from ammunition and missiles. China is also slated to bring Iran to the negotiating table. What do you think of Chinese influence and the role that it's played during the war?
See, US President Donald Trump has made it very clear that he is going to tariff China if it supplies weapons. So obviously there is something happening with China and as far as Iran is concerned. But what has happened is that the Western media, if you look at the Western media, it always tries to overrate China, always tries to underrate India. I do not know for what reason purposes. Okay, so that is their game. So it's not very clear as to what China has really done with Iran and whether it has brought it to the table, because Iran itself has been pulverized by US. I mean, it's been reduced to rubble. So obviously Iran needs to talk. It doesn't need China to push it to a dialogue. Here, US has to talk to Iran because US, what has happened is the inflation has hit about 3.3%. And that is going to reflect into the political sentiment within the US. So the problem over here is that US is heading for a midterm election. President Donald Trump cannot afford to be seen to be yielding to Iran. Iran cannot be afforded to be seen yielding to US because otherwise the regime changes over there. Because if a moderate regime comes in, then everything changes over there. Now, to say that China has been a major factor, there is no transparency in this. That China has done something wonderfully well, or all has happened is that Pakistan must have definitely briefed China on the talks, because ultimately Pakistan's real ally, remember, the iron brother is China. US is the place which gives easy money to Pakistan. That's where it is. So I'm not too sure whether China is really doing what appears to be and what the media is saying. There is no transparency per se in that. And definitely the weapons that are the air defense systems that the Iranians are using are the Chinese system. But have they really helped? I don't think so. Because the US Air Force and the Israeli Air Force are dominating the skies when they want to do that. I mean, you see what happens is fighters do get hit, because if you're going in an operation, this is a natural thing that happens, right? So I personally think that the Chinese thing would be a little bit overrated in this entire thing. But the fact remains is that both sides have no option but to talk and dialogue and try and de-escalate things. Because otherwise, it's definitely going to get really politically very hot for President Donald Trump in the midterm elections.
Sir, talks have broken down. The ceasefire has led to fragile peace. US tankers are in the Strait of Hormuz. We've already spoken about the impact of the blockade. Where does it leave the Gulf? And what is Israel's strategy now? Does Netanyahu have support?
See, first, in Israel, Netanyahu definitely has support. Now, what the Israeli strategy is to degrade the enemy. They are not looking for an all-out, outright, victory. They try and degrade the enemy as much as possible, whether it is Hezbollah in Lebanon, trying to push them beyond the Litani River, whether it is Iran. So whatever chance they get, they will go in. Basically, their whole idea is to degrade the enemy. And those who say that, Netanyahu does not have support are wrong, because recently the opposition leader said something and he was taken to task by the Israelis. So that's not the correct picture over there. Now, as far as this whole business of ceasefire and what happens over there, now what you will see is sporadic escalation. You will not see possibly a return of full-fledged war after the ceasefire thing, because what will happen is, in case the Iranians retaliate to the blockade, then there is going to be the counter retaliation. But till the time the Iranians do not retaliate, there won't be any retaliation from the other side also. One thing is very clear. International laws, UN Convention of Laws of Seas make it very clear that no country can block the transit passage. Okay? The world cannot allow Iran to dominate and charge toll tax over there. I mean, today, if Iran does that, tomorrow in the Straits of Malacca, Singapore will do it, Malaysia will do it, Indonesia will do it. Third time, maybe India will start doing something else. Then you have Taiwan Strait, you have Strait of Gibraltar. Bosporus, already Turkey charges money, but that is because of an agreement of 1936. So what you will see is, you will see sporadic escalation, but the dialogue will continue. That's where it looks like. But the real thing is, can US allow the Straits of Hormuz to be opened up to free navigation? Because if it does not do that, then the Gulf will get hit. All the Gulf partners of US will get hit. And they, as it is, they're looking at the various options as to how they will retaliate in future, or what is going to be their common strategy. Now, there is this whole business that, Pakistan possibly landed up some 13,000 troops and some 18 fighters in Saudi Arabia. After the ceasefire had taken place, there is no transparency in that. I can't confirm it. That has it even happened or not? Because, and even if it has happened, it is post ceasefire. There is no need for that. So ultimately, the Gulf countries will have to talk to each other and try and build up capabilities, defensive as well as offensive capabilities, to ensure that any country does not make them collateral damage. And the onus also lies on US, because ultimately it is the US which has to answer this question, that how did it allow the Gulf allies to get hit? So we are in a situation where, the war has ceased, but it's a very, very fragile piece, and it can escalate at any point of time. Or will it continue for a long time? I don't think so. Because the dialogue and the diplomacy will ultimately take primacy to missiles and bombs.
So thank you so much for joining us and bringing us decoding the latest developments in the Middle East war. With that, it's a wrap, but do stay tuned to Hindustan Times, and remember to tune in for next week's episode of Point Blank.